Turn to somebody and say, I'm ready for some resurrection. Let's take a deep breath together. His name is Miles Scott, but you probably know him as Bat Kid. He's 5 years old, and when he was 18 months old, he was diagnosed with leukemia, and for several years of his young life, went through treatment after treatment. And during that whole time, he was obsessed with superheroes, because in the end, superheroes always win. So when the Make-A-Wish Foundation contacted his family and asked him, "What wish do you have, Miles?" he said, "I want to be Bat Kid, the sidekick of Batman." So they, Make-A-Wish Foundation, along with help from San Francisco city officials and many other people, turned San Francisco into Gotham City. And I mean, they did it up big. Police Chief Greg Suhr, who I happen to know from my days in San Francisco, recorded a message that came through as if it was on CNN. Bat Kid even got a message from President Obama that day. In fact, how many people saw either the video or the news coverage of it? All right, so you know what I'm talking about. So Bat Kid, he has his own motorcade. There's 2 black Lamborghinis with Batman logos on them. He rides around in the city having a police escort. Bat Kid saved the city from the Riddler. He saved a damsel in distress. And he even saved San Francisco Giant mascot Lucille, who was tied up in AT&T Park. What they did in this transformation was amazing. Make-A-Wish Foundation had put out emails months earlier asking people if they would help make this happen for this child, hoping that they'd get 200 people around City Hall to make it look like a crowd. They got over 12,000 people that day. Came out to turn San Francisco into Gotham City and to make a little kid's wish come true. It made the international news. There were over 400,000 tweets about it in 117 countries. It reached over 750 million people, this story did. Somebody even bought a billboard afterward that said, "Bat Kid, thanks for saving Gotham City." Was he Bat Kid that day? Absolutely. It was a transformation. Because transformation means something else is possible. Something else besides his illness, besides his treatment, besides his exhaustion, something else was possible. That's what Easter's all about. That something else is possible. It's about transformation. It's not about, do you believe these facts? It's about, can you experience transformation? As our story was read for us this morning from the Gospel of John, early on the first day of the week, because it needed to be a new week, because the week before that had been hellish, devastating. I don't know why they call it Holy Week. They should call it Hell Week. Mary Magdalene went to the tomb early. The stone was rolled away. It was empty. She ran back and got Peter and John. They must have all been staying in some location together. Peter and John ran there, this legendary foot race. John's the faster one. He gets there, but then he's reticent to go in. Peter, blundering as he is, keeps running and runs right into the tomb and looks to see what's happening. They don't understand. It's empty. So Peter and John turn around and go home. But Mary stayed, crying, slobbering, weeping. She's out there, and Apparently there's two angels, and they say to her, "Why are you crying?" And she's like, "They've taken away my Lord, I don't know." She never even noticed that they were like angels speaking to her. She was so deep in it, so consumed with her grief. Didn't even pay attention to like, wow, there's angels. No, just because they've taken away my friend and I don't know where he is. She turns around and she thinks she sees the gardener, and there's a voice that says to her again, "Why are you crying?" And then she hears her name, Mary. And in that moment, she's transformed. Things begin to switch for her. Something else became possible in that moment. She heard her name and she recognized the voice. She turned around and she went to grab onto Jesus, and he said, "Don't hold on to me." You know, he was still in his process of transformation. Don't hold on to me. And she, Mary, would be the first in a long line of us who try to hang on and have to let go and believe differently than perhaps we thought. Because transformation happens at different times, at different paces, but it happens for all of us. Transformation happens. Are you the same person you were 10 years ago? You know, I've just recently looked at the 2004 church directory. Let me tell you, you're not the same as you were 10 years ago. Just saying. Beloved friends, part of the beauty of the Christian tradition is the utter realism in which it embraces suffering. At the heart of Christianity is suffering embraced and transformed, because we've all had our hell weeks, have we not? Christianity doesn't try to cover up the mess that is life sometimes, the pain that every one of us walks through. Not suffering intended, not suffering for suffering's sake, but suffering just because it is, because it happens. But it's not the end of the story. In the midst of that week of hell, where every human emotion, every one of them, rejection, betrayal, desertion, disappointment, despair, unspeakable grief, in the midst of that, from that, through that, is how transformation and resurrection triumphs. Transformation. You see, people think that when a thing changes, there is a suggestion that it is no longer itself. But I'm here to tell you today that a thing transformed is more fully itself than ever. It radiates with beauty. Take the butterfly, for instance. The quintessential transformation. Chrysalis, that process of change. You with me? In the cocoon, the caterpillar does not die and then become the butterfly. That's not what happens. There's a reorganization of cells. And in that cocoon, if you were to open it up, what you would see is something called goo. All right, got it? Goo. Say goo. Okay, that's what's in there, goo. G-O-O, goo. It's goo in that cocoon. It's not death. It's goo. In fact, they've done studies. Who thinks of these things? I have no idea. But they've done studies that the memory of the caterpillar remains. And when it becomes the butterfly, it contains its memory. But things dissolve and reorganize. What's in the cocoon? Goo. Good. It is that goo that becomes the stuff, the material of the wings. And when the sun then shines on those wings and gives them life, the butterfly can fly. It is the goo of our lives that leads us to transformation, that becomes the very material of our transformation. The goo, the grief, the addictions, the stories we tell ourselves, our losses, relationships that aren't what we want them to be, memories, self-loathing, depression, anxiety, worry. That goo has the potential to become the very stuff of our transformation, transformed into the very wings that give us the radiant beauty of life. So you got some goo going on today? Wow. You're about ready to be transformed. It's not like the old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's not like that. It's from those things. The worst goo weeks of my life are the very things that make me who I am, the person today. From those things come great things. I had a little story this week that, in everyone's household, I'm sure you all divide up tasks of who does what. And, I do many things, but sew is not one of them. But Ann Lee, my spouse, is a really good seamstress, and so she fixes things that rip and break, and she can't sew it. She gets a little super glue, and it's all good to go. And so on Thursday morning, I left my corduroy shirt that I love, but I had ripped the back of it on something, and she was gone already, so I left on her desk chair my corduroy shirt with a little Post-it note with an arrow pointing to the rip, just hoping that it might be transformed when I got home. I get a text a couple hours later. The text says, "Good news. You're getting a new corduroy shirt from LL Bean." "Bad news. I sewed the patch on the wrong side." You see, I got a new shirt. Why? That's really mild goo. I've got other stories, but those are for another time. Transformation happens. Fear into love, despair into hope. And I want you to imagine this truth. All the ingredients for transformation are already present in our living being. All the ingredients necessary are there. Resurrection is in our DNA, just like it is in the caterpillar. Everything for chrysalis we have. It doesn't have to be a grand change. It doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It doesn't have to change the world and start a movement. But if you just, stay with me now, if you just are going on a journey and shift your course by 1 degree, you will end up in a completely different place. So sometimes transformation is just that 1 degree, and you will end up somewhere completely different because something else is possible. What is our task? It's to create circumstances where that kind of transformation can take place. Just like almost 20,000 people helped transform San Francisco, into Gotham City. So a little kid who'd battled leukemia could live his wish and be back, kid. And you know what? He did save the city that day. It was a different place. And that's what we try to do in our lives for one another and in spiritual communities like this, is to create the circumstances so that what is already in our DNA can come to life. And we, like the butterfly, can radiate with beauty. Happy resurrection, everybody. May it be so in your own lives. Amen. Let's rise as you're able.
Some of you may have heard Mercy, that's Penny's daughter, in the talent show sing a song from Frozen. I was having a hard time listening. My heart was pounding. I didn't know whether it was because I felt so strongly that here's this little girl with all this courage to sing, and then I realized part of it were the words. Here they go. Don't let them in. Don't let them see. Be the good girl you always have to be. Conceal. Don't feel. Don't let them know. Are any of you in that place? Then it goes on, now they know. Let it go. Let it go. Can't hold it back anymore. Let it go. Well, I was a little rattled, so I went to my spiritual director and I explained, I've got this problem. My goo is so stuck, it's frozen, just like the movie. And I really need some help. Well, spiritual directors don't roll their eyes, but I think she really did. And she said, well, you have homework. I'd like you to write down 15 things that you think in your head that have you stuck or frozen. I could write down 2. Be nice and make your bed before you leave home in case you're in an accident and dead and somebody gets in your house and then they think, oh my gosh, they don't even make their bed. So I called a girlfriend and I said, you know me really well. Could you write my 15? I am so deep in this goo that you could help. She came out with 15 for me in no time at all. Well, now they know, said the song. So what is it that's in your head that's getting you oh my gosh. Penny, you were supposed to be up here. Penny, hi. What are you doing? Wow. Wow.
because something else is possible. Right? This is you on the inside. This just happens to me to be me on the outside. Are you ready for transformation? Yes. All right, we're going to help you a little bit with that then. We're going to remind you of what you said. I'm going to ask my friends to help me here. Every new morning, there's some dew on the ground. It gives life to things, reminds us that morning has broken with the possibility of transformation, possibility, new life, the hope of new love. And so as we playfully give you a little dewdrop, when that hits you, let it remind you that all things are made new. And when that water hits you, say to yourself, something else and something more is possible. Let the transformation begin. Let your transformation begin. If we miss you, we'll come back.